Good morning, everyone. I call the Committee of Supplies Section A to order. We're meeting today to continue consideration of the estimates of the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General. I now recognize the Minister to move the vote.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I move, be it resolved that a sum not exceeding $942,252,000 be granted to Her Majesty to defray the expenses of the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General Ministry operations.
Recognizing the member from Prince George Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. As a previous arrangement, we've got the Green Party that will take 30 minutes of the next 30 minutes of this process here.
Thank you, member. Recognizing the the member from Saanich and the North Islands.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to ask a few questions here. Just open with a question that the Minister and I have been engaging on by letter, and just wanting to make sure that we can get this question on the record, just with respect to ICBC rates. And I know that people can FOI the letters and they can see the responses, and the Minister I can see in his face that he knows that this is coming. So anyway, according to ICBC's basic insurance information sharing reports, it appears that BC's urban areas are treated differently than rural areas. Since the first year of available data in 2001, the reports reveal a large disparity in premiums paid when compared to the cost of claims between those areas. The disparity amounts to hundreds of dollars per vehicle that's insured, and in recent years, urban drivers have actually had their insurance subsidized by the rest of BC, while the rest of BC has continued to overpay. ICBC's response has been that rate fairness is a priority, and that yet they and the BC government have long been aware of the inequity that exists. In fact, in this government's directives during the 2018 ICBC rate design process, the inequality wasn't just acknowledged, it was intentionally extended for at least 10 more years. Some drivers, such as those in my communities that I represent on the Southern Gulf Islands, are being doubly exploited as they've been overpaying, and now they're seeing their annual increases. Now they're seeing annual increases in their territorial rates because they're connected to communities here in the Greater Victoria area. When the government knew that customers in some parts of BC were getting far less value from their vehicle insurance due to the ICBC rate design, they didn't just fix it so that everyone, why didn't they just fix it so that everyone and everywhere in BC receives a fair value?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I thank the member for the question. So there's 14 rate territories in British Columbia, and in determining the factors that go into them, there's a whole range of, it's the vehicles, type of vehicles, it's the rate of accidents, all of those things go into determining what that rate structure is. And I know the member has raised in terms of the basic, but what you also have to do is to look at the overall total package. So it's the basic and the optional as well. And what you'll find is that in Salt Spring, they are, and I know that's the area of particular interest, is they have amongst the lowest rates altogether anywhere in the province. On top of that, the Utilities Commission reviews the rates as they're set. And if the member wants, I can give him an illustration of how that works in a particular, in a typical vehicle that he might find in his constituency, in particular on Salt Spring.
Recognizing the leader of the third party.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask a few questions about ICBC and the changes that were made to the no-fault model, and just the starting place where in 2020, when I asked the then minister about protections for cyclists, pedestrians, non-motorized vehicle users of the road, I was assured at the time in estimates that the no-fault insurance would indeed provide protection and coverage to cyclists and to pedestrians. I'm sure that the minister and the staff are very familiar with the case of Ben Bollinger. It's been in the news, and his case really does highlight some gaps that exist in the ICB structure. He was on a bicycle, hit by a vehicle. And what's interesting is when he did an FOI of the materials related to his case, because he was given a bill for repair damages to a vehicle that had run a stop sign and hit him. The ICBC claims adjuster ruled initially that the driver was 100% at fault based on how serious the injuries were. This was also corroborated by witnesses. And that although it's the understanding that there was only one witness contacted, and then this ruling of 100% fault of the driver was overruled by a manager in November, saying that the injuries are substantial, there's no dash cam footage, and therefore it was determined to be 50-50. I know that this has been resolved, but this points to some procedural issues that I think the public needs to know are going to be addressed. So despite the relatively clear finding in the case that Ben Bollinger that driver was 100% at fault, it was overturned because there was no dash cam video. So my first question is dash cam video evidence, or video evidence generally, the standard of proof that's required in the case of accidents?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. No, it's not.
Member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's good to know. Other jurisdictions in Canada have switched the onus in the case of a crash between a motor vehicle and an active transport user to be on the motor vehicle to prove that they're not at fault. And I think this is particularly important to vulnerable road users who, in the case of an accident, are quite a bit more likely to be severely injured and therefore unable to collect evidence, gather witnesses, etc. Is BC considering a similar transition of onus to the driver of a vehicle in the case of an accident between a vehicle and a vulnerable road user, a pedestrian or a cyclist? So is BC considering a transition of onus in order to better protect the vulnerable road users?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'll make the following response to the member's question in this way. So the initial accident took place. There was a decision made. More information came in, or it was reviewed by the more senior manager, who made a different decision. Further information came through, and the original decision was made. There were procedures and policies in place that were in place and followed and resulted in ultimately the right decision being made. That being said, at the time, I said we needed to go out and review what had happened, and came back and said, to make it clear that here's how the procedures will be going to ensure that the right decision does not happen again. And so it's in specific cases where fault is not, where there is insufficient evidence. It is not the fault on the cyclist or the pedestrian. It is in those situations, it is the vehicle, but it is not a blanket every time there is an accident. If there is a witness that, for example, or there is evidence that says there is, the fault was on the pedestrian, for example, that would still be the case. So let's say I just walked out, I didn't look, I just walked out into the path of an oncoming car. That's, I am at fault for doing that without looking. But in the case of that stop sign, and it's the driver's fault, then obviously they are the ones who are at fault. And that's why we've changed the policies, to make sure that there's no ambiguity. They are reviewed now by a group, a committee of not just a single adjuster, but of more than one adjusters, to ensure that full determination is made.
Member.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to the Minister for that. I think that I'm glad to hear that the Minister has recommended or moved forward with making sure there's a review of this, because clearly the case with Ben Bollinger really highlights some of the concerns that were expressed with, particularly by cyclist advocacy groups, with the movement to the no-fault insurance, that there is this additional and heightened risk for cyclists, and Ben's case is one that shows that it took a lot to get to a resolution that, as the Minister says, was the right one. He notes, because of the FOI'd materials, repeated attempts by ICBC to close the injury portion of his claim at a time when he was still accessing physio twice a month. He had pretty significant injuries to his hand and arm. The efforts to close the claim weren't successful, as a manager noted that Ben still required an X-ray and a CT scan, but it highlights what seems to be a resistance to support to a cyclist. And that resistance of support and care of injured, vulnerable road users, again, is something that was really highlighted as a concern, and what I had spent time in 2020 in estimates with the former minister to make sure that this wasn't going to be the outcome for cyclists and pedestrians in BC. The ICBC website states, cyclists and pedestrians don't need to purchase ICBC insurance to be eligible to receive care and recovery benefits if they are injured in a crash in a vehicle. And it also states that non-drivers, quote, have access to the same full range of care and recovery benefits as drivers, but given that there is a pretty significant difference in vulnerability between a person inside a vehicle getting into a crash versus a person on foot or on a bicycle that doesn't have the protection of a vehicle and airbags around them, does the Minister think that it's fair that cyclists and vulnerable road users get the same benefits as drivers?
Thank you, Member. Minister, noting the hour.
Yeah,
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. So the benefits that a cyclist or a pedestrian or would receive, I'm not talking about a motorist, are not limited. They are for as long as they need them. They are substantially better than under the old system, so that they get the care. And it's not a question of wanting to shut treatment down or anything like that at all. They continue to get the care that they need for as long as they need that. And with that, I move the committee rise, report progress, and seek leave to sit again.
Thank you, Minister. Members, a vote is about to take place. The question is the committee rise, report progress, and seek leave to sit again. Those in favour, please indicate aye. Aye. Those opposed, please indicate nay. The motion is carried. Thank you, members. The committee now stands adjourned.